We have some breaking news in our politics lead this afternoon after an election night that left Democrats dazed and confused. The top Democrat in the House now is facing a new and rare challenge. Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio announced moments ago that he is challenging House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi for leadership of the Democrats in the House of Representatives. This after a small group of House Democrats, including Congressman Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, called for new leadership, fresh blood, and pushed to delay the Democratic leadership election that could potentially replace Pelosi. Let me bring in Congressman Seth Moulton, Democrat of Massachusetts. Congressman, good to see you as always.
Good to see you, Jake.
So, first of all, what do you think the problem is for Democrats? What is, if you had to narrow it down to just one thing, is it that you're not conveying a clear enough economic message to white working class voters? You're not motivating the base enough? What is it?
I'm not sure we know exactly what the problem is. There are a lot of disturbing trends in this election. Clearly, working class people feel like they don't have leadership from the Democratic Party, even when I think our economic policies are clearly helping grow the middle class. You had Hispanics and blacks who voted for someone who's a racist on TV. So there's clearly a disconnect there as well. The point is that we need to take some time to have this conversation and figure it out, because after several successive election losses, clearly the status quo is not acceptable.
So you got what you asked for. House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi agreed to postpone the leadership elections until November 30th. So what is your plan, and do you have an alternate candidate in mind to challenge Leader Pelosi?
No, I'm not out there to push a certain candidate. I'm not out there to support or go against Nancy Pelosi. What I'm saying is that we need to have a serious conversation and listen to the American people to develop a new strategy. And whoever leads our party ought to have a strategy, and that's what we ought to vote on. I came to office through a competitive primary. I had to listen to the constituents that I would come to represent, and we need to do that as a Democratic Party before we just rush into a new term with exactly the same plan that we've.
You're from a blue state, but you were elected during ago. You're being bipartisan leadership as a rising star in the Democratic Party. Why not put your name in the mix?
Look, I've only been here for a couple of years. I spent a lot more time in the Marines than I have in Congress. But I think it was important in this case for someone who was not interested in running him or herself to stand up there and say, we need to have this conversation. We need to step back and we need to talk. And that's what we're doing.
Earlier today, Nancy Pelosi claimed she has the support of 2/3 of the Democratic caucus, which is enough to secure the leadership post she's held since 2003. You say that's not true. Why?
Well, I don't know if it's true or not. I haven't seen any of the whip lists. But again, this isn't about myself or Nancy Pelosi or any one person who might want to challenge her. It's really about the fact that clearly our strategy to date hasn't worked, and we've got to articulate a better strategy for the American people. You know, I've held a lot of town halls in my district. But the single busiest one was in one of the smallest towns that I represent just after this election, because so many people came out and said, there's something wrong here. We don't want this man Trump to be our president, and yet there's something wrong with the Democratic Party because people aren't voting for Democrats. So we've got a lot of work to do. I mean, right now we don't control the White House, we don't control the Senate, we don't control the House of Representatives, we only control 16 governorships across the country, and we don't control the majority of state legislatures. So clearly there's something wrong, and we can't just keep going down the same old path.
Your colleague, Congressman Tim Ryan, is challenging Nancy Pelosi. Take a listen to what he had to say earlier today to CNN's Manu Raju.
I think people have been talking about this since 2010. And, you know, I think we've had this conversation in 10, 12, 14, 16. You know, we're at the lowest number of state and federal officials since Reconstruction. We have the lowest number in our caucus since 1929. And we've lost over 60 seats since 2010. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and you keep getting the same results. So, time to move on, I think.
Your thoughts? Could you support Congressman Ryan?
I'm not throwing my support behind any candidate until I see the plan. I want to see what the strategy is going going forward to clearly have a different agenda, a different message, and potentially different messengers. But, you know, the thing is that Democrats are really on the right side of the issues for working class families. Our economic policies will grow the middle class. We have a solid national security policy, quite different than Donald Trump's, and I think most Americans agree he's not fit to be commander-in-chief. So we're on the right side of a lot of issues here, but clearly our plans are not resonating with the American people. So we need a new strategy, and we need to hear that from whoever is going to lead our party.
The top three House Democrats are 76 years old, 77 years old, and 76 years old. By contrast, the top three Republicans in the House are 46 years old, 51 years old, and 51 years old. Do you think that's relevant?
I do think it's relevant. We have an incredibly diverse caucus, diverse in age, diverse in demographics. We have people from the coast, but also people from middle America. We have a very strong black caucus in the House. We've got to hear from all those different constituencies, and I don't think we're hearing from enough of them today. And young people are a part of that. You know, young people came out and voted Democratic. People of color came out and voted Democratic. And yet when you look at our leadership, you don't see a lot of young people or people of color represented.
All right, Congressman Seth Moulton, thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, Jake.